Our next speaker is the president and CEO of Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. She's well known for her innovative thinking, next generation consumer insights, and idea sharing in efforts to move the industry forward. She frequently speaks at real estate and technology conferences, providing guidance and on best practices and market trends. Please give a warm Palm Springs welcome to the always amazing Sherry Chris. Get up here, Sherry.
You're awesome. Wow, what a great morning, and I'm so honored to be here. Gino, I loved your message. We can do anything. That's his message. If you put your mind to it, you can do anything. And so here we are 10 years later at NAGLREP, and also being one of the founding brands. I'm so honored and proud, and the first NAGLREP conference that I was at with you, Jeff, well, there were, I think, maybe 175 people at it, which was fantastic in Florida. And today we have almost 1,000, I'm thinking, looks like that in the room. And so the growth has been significant, and that's because a group of people put their mind to it. So I'm going to talk to you today about some different topics. And so what I want to do first is take us down memory lane in real estate. Then we'll move into the consumer, something that, a topic that's near and dear to my heart, because that's who helps us earn a living. And then I'm going to go on to a top 10 list and end with a little talk about culture. Before I do that, though, I'd like to acknowledge some of my team members who are here, and our resident DJ over here, John Thorpe. Fortunately, my room was not overlooking the party, but I could still hear it, so it's okay, though. Tim Herr, who is our Director of Diversity for Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate, who's right up here in the front. And we have a number of broker owners and agents. Scott, who spoke yesterday and is an ongoing speaker. Scott, you're in the back. Stand up for a moment. You always do a great job. His partner, Patrick. So I'm so excited to be here. And you know, the great thing is that last night at the white party, and I was in all black, I looked like one of the waiters. Nobody came up and asked me for a drink, though. I would have gotten any of you a drink. It was so nice to see so many old friends. And these are people in the audience, some of you that I've met over the years, and it's just great to reacquaint myself with you once again and talk about one of the most important parts of life, which is real estate. So let's get started. And for those of you who are social media freaks like I am, here's our hashtag. Don't forget anything that you post, hashtag NAGLREP. If you like anything that I have to say, you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and you know, just repeat or write it down. My deck will be available to all of you, and so you can use it as you wish, and hopefully it will help you be better at your job and make more money. So the evolution of real estate. And I had been thinking about this for a while because I've been in real estate for over 30 years. And way back in the 1980s when I started selling real estate in Canada, I'll call it real estate 1.0. And so that was the era of the MLS book. And so, you know, I know you're dating yourself. If you put your hands up, how many people? Well, there are some, but not a lot. There are probably some millennials in the room who are, you know, turning to the person next to them and saying, "What's that?" And so what it is that way back in the old days, we used a book to help find homes. There was no technology. In fact, I remember driving around, and if you had to make a phone call from the road, you had to know where all the phone booths were in your trading area and have first dimes, and then it went up to quarters to actually make a call. So that was way back when. Back then, the broker owner was in control of everything. And in fact, my broker told me you need to show up for the sales meeting on Friday. You need to do an open house every Saturday and Sunday. And we actually were trained to be the gatekeepers of information. In fact, when a buyer came in, we would qualify them. a first-time home buyer, and then we'd ask them, what type of home are you looking for? Might be a 4-bedroom, 2-story with a double-car garage. And then it was my job to actually pick the houses that I would show that prospect. And so I was trained to look for 3 homes, one that was really great, another one that was okay, and another one that was terrible. I see some of you nodding. And so I was trained to show him the okay house first, or them. And so they'd walk in and say, oh honey, this is okay. You know, it could do for us. Then I was trained to show them the terrible house next. And they'd be like, ooh, we don't like this at all. Maybe we should go back to the first one. And then I would say, I've got one more to show you, and take them to the 3rd home. And so they'd be like, wow, this is incredible. And then I would say, let's go back to the office and write up an offer. So that's how we sold real estate way back then. It's kind of frightening to think about that today. And in fact, I'm embarrassed standing up here and sharing with you how I was trained to sell real estate, because it was not a great customer experience at all, was it? In fact, it was terrible. But it gets a little worse. When we, it does. Then we go into real estate 2.0, which is the 90s, and it was all about the agent then. In fact, at that time, some of the business models shifted to agent in control and broker owner as a landlord, and not much else. And so at that time, it was all about us as agents. I'm number one, I'm the best. You're you know, very lucky if you get to deal with me, Mr. and Mr. Consumer, or Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, or Mrs. and Mrs. Consumer. You're very lucky. In fact, one of the billboards that I used to use in this presentation is from the Los Angeles area, and the last time I spoke about this, somebody said, oh, I remember this. It was LA's hottest realtor. I don't know whether any of you in the room remember, but it was a guy in a Speedo. He was hot. Men and women would think so. And in a brightly colored Speedo, you know, just kind of on the billboard, and he was LA's hottest realtor. Now, what on earth does that have to do with the end consumer? Absolutely nothing. And why would a consumer be drawn to someone like that and thinking that they'd be an expert in home ownership? Probably not. So that was real estate 2.0, a very interesting era that some people sadly are still in, but I'm sure nobody in this room. Then we moved to the 2000s and real estate 3.0. And that's when Zillow started, Realtor.com. People could Google you. They could start looking at your profile on Facebook. They could choose you, start to choose you based on rankings and how you, you know, rated next to your competitors in a marketplace. And so the whole industry shifted. And those were the days where we started talking about disintermediation and the fact that our industry may not be around anymore, because what if the consumer could go direct to consumer? Of course, that didn't happen, thank goodness, and it's because of our hard work that it didn't happen, but we're still in that 3.0 mode today, where the consumer's in control. And so there's another whole talk that I give, which I'm not going to today, that talks about how you present yourself online to make sure that you attract those consumers, but that's for another day. What we are going to move on to, though, is 4.0. And so fortunately, because of the ongoing sophistication of technology, we're now able to predict when a buyer or seller is most likely to move. So it's a secret in this industry, and that is that we're able to start to take control again. So back in the 1.0 era, my broker told me, I want you to go and buy recipe cards at the Staples. There wasn't Staples then. And so I'm like, what? And he said, you go and buy 3x5 recipe cards. You write down every one of your prospects on the card, and then on the right-hand top corner, you write A, B, or C. And then every day when you come into the office, you flip through them, and you deal with the A. You deal with the A's first. So that was way back then. Today, we're able to do that using technology. It's called predictive analytics and predictive modeling. where technology today will bring those A prospects up to the forefront, so we're able to talk to them in a different way than the C prospects, that we're able to go to them first in the morning and see what they want to do. We're even able to see if they are looking in New Jersey, as an example, and then they suddenly start looking for homes in Manhattan. We're able to identify that and call them and say, I see you're looking in Manhattan now. May I refer you to a real estate agent there? So we're able to gain control in different ways, which is good for our industry, and it's even going to become more so in the months and years to come. So that's kind of where we are today. But you know, the main point of all of this is that the consumer still is in control. And I want to spend a few minutes talking about the consumer of today. And I want you to think about the fact that we're all consumers. So I'm not talking about real estate consumers, I'm talking about consumers in general. We all buy things. And so let's look at the consumer of today. So we'll go up to the top, and the words say craves content. We crave content. In fact, I'm guessing probably at least 25% of you are on your phones right now looking at something that is different than me talking. I'm not going to ask you to put your hands up. It's okay, because when Gino was talking, I was doing it a bit too. So, and I loved his talk, but I was doing it a bit too. So you might be looking at where I'm going to go for dinner tonight, or for me, I'd be looking at shoes, pink shoes in particular, but we crave content. Today we crave content that we want to look at. In the earlier days of technology, we craved all content. And here's an example of that, and I'm sure that most of us fall into this category, is that we would have spent hours looking at kitty videos or doggy, puppy videos on YouTube. We went from one to the next to the next. I can see some of your faces are going, no way. But it might have been something else that you were interested in and looking at. And then you'd look at your watch and go, oh my gosh, 2 hours have gone by and I've wasted this time on YouTube. That was then. Today we are very smart. We're much smarter than we were back then. And we only want to look at what we have time for and those things that are of great interest. Now, for many people, that has to do with housing and design. And so when you think about how you portray yourselves as real estate agents and brokers, you need to create content that is relevant to the people you are connecting with online. And what we try and do is capture the interest of the consumer in the dreaming phase today. Because for me, I'm going to say, what used to be a real estate transaction or a deal, I hate that word deal, where we could say to each other, I did 5 deals this month. What has that got to do with the consumer? Today, what we want to do is help someone, help a family or an individual move on to the next phase of their lives, achieve their dreams through home ownership. That's what we do, and so that content piece is very, very important. The next piece is technology, and for us, technology creates efficiencies. For all of us as realtors, we use CRM products and we have our own websites, and we figure out through our digital marketing centers how to communicate with those A, B, and C prospects. And so technology is nothing more in this industry than an efficiency. NAR tells us each and every year that the most important part of the real estate transaction, according to consumers, is the relationship between all of you and the consumers that you work with. We need to make sure that we keep that remains year over year over year. So it ties back to exceeding the consumer's expectations. Let's go on to hyper-personalization. And that is really the internet today, and technology follows us everywhere we go. And so we want to follow our consumers as well and help them through predictive analytics and modeling wake up and start thinking about houses. So if I happen to be looking at pink shoes last night on Zappos.com, this morning when I wake up and open my laptop and think, I think I'll check out Facebook and see if anyone took any pictures of me at the white party, and if I didn't like them, then I could untag myself. What pops up first? The pink shoes. And those shoes are going to follow me every day for a long time. And even after I buy them, more shoes will pop up. And that's what happens. It's how technology is so sophisticated. Our desires follow us each and every day. That has to happen in housing as well. Today's consumers empowered. They make the decisions. They figure out who they want to transact with and create relationships with. And so it's more important than ever, as I mentioned earlier, to make sure that your online profile is as clean and good and professional as it can be. And so we talk about that a lot at Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. And so some of my guiding principles are around no political commentary, because you don't know whether your clients are on the same page or not. And so they don't want to see what you think about X or Y. Set up a private Facebook page for that. And it's the same with your personal life. Be careful what you post, because the consumer is looking very closely at you. I find it all the time. Yesterday I was in a city in the south where the broker that I was meeting with, a prospect, he said, "Oh, I saw you were singing at your conference with the band. We have the Be Better band, but I didn't see any video of it." So I said, "Well, there's a reason for that. I'm not a very good singer." So people notice everything today, and it's just so interesting. Today's consumer is very sensitive to service. And so when we think about companies like Apple as an example, and I love to talk about Apple because, you know, I love to love them and I love to hate them all at the same time. Every time a new operating system is rolled out, my database gets skewed. I just dropped my phone this week and cracked the entire screen. Another $200 on Saturday will be spent. But one of the most brilliant things that Apple did as a company is open up their retail outlets. Not because they're selling more, they would have sold the same product online, but it's because they're able to demonstrate their value proposition to the end consumer. They're able to show that every consumer is important. When you walk into an Apple store, no matter who you are, they greet you, they help you, and they don't leave you until you're finished. And they'll spend 2 hours with you helping you retrieve your lost password. There's no sale in that. It doesn't matter. They're showing that their service level is up here. It's absolutely brilliant. So I challenge you, how do we do that in our industry? How do you do the little things each and every day that help provide exceptional customer service? How do you surprise and delight your end consumer? Think about it. You know, the millennial generation probably brought us here in the first place, because back in real estate 1.0 and certainly in 2.0, we weren't thinking about customer service at all. But today's millennial generation has raised their hands and said, we want service. We want to create a deeper relationship with the people that we deal with and buy things from. And so, I have to tell you, a couple of weeks ago I heard that millennials don't want to be called millennials anymore. So is that true? Tim?
When it's a good thing, we call millennials, it's bad.
No, okay, so that makes sense. But they just want to be part of the population. So, you know, they're tired of being targeted as bad, as Tim says. I think they're great myself, because they've taught us a lot about how we can do things differently. So let's move on to socially minded. And today's consumer, again, led by millennials, wants to deal with companies who give back to the world. That's pretty important. And there are many different ways to do that. You can do that within your own community, or you can do that on a wider and global scale. But I'm telling you, the consumers that you are dealing with today, it's important to them to know that you are thoughtful and generous as a human being. And so that's something that has changed over the years. It wasn't that predominant in the good old days. So the last one is the diversity in multiple generations at play. And, you know, back in the 1980s, we either had first-time home buyers or everyone else That was it. Those were the two distinct groups. Today we have Gen Z, the teenagers who will be our next consumers in real estate and beyond. We have the millennials, we have Generation X, Generation Y, baby boomers, civics, and we all want to be communicated with in different ways. And so it's much more complex today than it used to be in years gone by. We have to think about and ask. And you know, I tell agents this all the time. Do you ask a new consumer, how would you like to communicate? Or do you just assume that they want to communicate in a certain way? It's thinking a little bit more deeply each and every transaction and each and every encounter. And then, of course, the diversity piece. It's so important today. For us, we belong to NAGLREP, we belong to ARIA, and we belong to NAGLREP. And the fact that gay LGBT marriage became legal, I think it's 3 years ago now, is such an important landmark in our country today, because new household formations and the acceptance of new household formations is more important than ever. And so what I try and teach our real estate agents and brokers is think about each and every encounter that you have and make sure that you're able to treat the consumer that you're dealing with in an ethical, real, and authentic way. So let's move on. And I want to talk about top 10 list of where I see the future of our industry. And so I'll go through these relatively quickly, and again, I'm happy to provide this deck to you. Number one, the era of the one-size brokerage is over. We need to acknowledge that and work together. So I'm a big believer and proponent in all of us working together. I'm a big believer in raising the bar in our industry and not fighting with one another and not pointing fingers and saying that brokerage is bad, that brokerage or brand does things in a different way. We're all in this industry together. And the more that we can demonstrate that to the end consumer, the better off we'll be. And so today we have capped fee models, discount models, do-it-yourself models, pioneers who are trying to do different things, and traditional brokerages and brands, and everything in between. That's okay. It's just like buying different products and services as a consumer out there. There's something for everyone. Number two, brokerage brands need to move beyond parity and focus on being unique and experiential. In the good old days, we were all the same. We provided service, we weren't different, we were all exactly the same. Today, we need to be different. Way back when, we were generalists. We all did the same thing. We didn't really go deep into our neighborhoods. Most of us didn't. Today, we need to decide what we want to stand for as individuals, as brokerages, and as brands, and make sure that we articulate that and live that each and every day. That's what's going to draw consumers to you. Think about the Apple example again. Number three, if you take the risk of owning a brokerage, you deserve to make a profit. And that's been something in my travels across the country and beyond. I'm shocked to meet brokers who say, I'm not profitable. And I say, why? You know, that's not right, because you're taking the risk of owning a brokerage. We all deserve to be profitable. I look at agents today, whether they're individual agents or teams, small teams, medium or mega teams, as businesses that are being run. I look at those team leaders as CEOs, those agents as CEOs, and I like to talk to all of you CEO to CEO. We all deserve to make a profit. And so think about that in your day-to-day running of your business. Generalists will be replaced by niche experts. And so what is your niche? What do you want to stand for? How do you want to differentiate yourself in your trading area? And that's how you will rise to the top. That's how the end consumer will see you. And if you're a broker owner in this room, that's how culturally aligned agents will find you and want to join your brokerage. And so I'm going to talk about culture a little bit at the end because it's so very important. Number 5, socially responsible brands with a point of view will resonate deeply with the consumer. And that ties back to giving back to the world. One of the things that we undertook, a big project 2.5 years ago, was to build an 80-home community in El Salvador. And so with a partnership with New Story, a next-generation charity, we found some land in El Salvador and started construction through fundraising of an 80-home community for families who are living in dirt huts. And for me personally, it was very moving and continues to be, where we're over halfway finished with that community, and in the end we will have created homes for over 500 people who do not have homes today, who don't have plumbing, who don't have electricity, yet they're happy in their lives, and they're going to be even happier as they start to move in. We didn't do that for any PR reason. We did it because it's important to give back. And so I urge all of you to be socially responsible as well. In as little or as big a way as you want, it helps you wake up each day and feel like you're a better person. Feel like you're doing something more than buying and selling real estate for consumers, that you're actually taking your brain power and your earning power and taking it to a higher level. Number 6, 2 buckets. Do it yourself for half the market and high touch for the other half. So I like to talk about high touch because that's who I am as a brand CEO, and that's who our brokers and agents across the country are. But there's another whole part of the market. And it's okay. The do-it-yourself or discount market is fine because some people will be drawn to that. Some agents want to work at companies like that, and some brokers want to launch brands like that. It's absolutely fine. Acknowledge it. It ties back to something that I said earlier, and it will become more predominant as new models continue to launch and grow, and the pioneers out there, and I call pioneers the companies who try different things and take a high risk. They help all of us because they teach us what's going to work and what's not going to work. Those are the risk takers and the entrepreneurs. Number 7, unforeseen new entrants will provide challenges to the traditional brokerage in highly unlikely ways. Let's think about Facebook. They have a big laser focus on real estate right now, and we're meeting with them constantly to try and figure out what it is. Think about Amazon. They just bought Whole Foods. What's next? Do they want to control the real estate industry as well? We don't know what's coming down the pike. Many of these companies don't either, but they're going to be looking at our industry because of the size of it and the huge number of transactions and consumers that could buy other goods and services. Number 8, companies with well-defined lead generation revenue streams and other sources of revenue will be valued at higher multiples. So what does that mean as a broker owner and an agent is that you have a saleable asset out there, but you need to diversify what you're doing. You need to have a lead generation stream that's coming in. Your company or your own business will be worth more. The businesses that are worth the least are agents that wait for the referrals to come in word of mouth, the old-fashioned way. You need to get out there and look at how you can be proactive and change the way you're doing business to be more profitable. Number 9, broker owners will be more nimble, visionary, and able to adapt to change at light speed. I say will be. What it should read is need to be. So we cannot say, well, we'll let that company down the road try it and see how it works. We need to be out there thinking each and every day and thinking about how we can change this industry to be better for the end consumer. Number 10, culture is critical within strategy. And I am such a big believer in the importance of culture. Culture is a powerful, powerful thing. If you take an office of real estate agents that are culturally aligned, that team is very powerful because you have a common mission, a common purpose, and a common goal. And you're doing the right thing each and every day. For us as a brand, culture is very important. And I'm going to share our core values with you now. Culture within strategy creates profitable growth. So it's that combination of culture and strategy that will take you to the next level and help you be a more professional person. So for us, we like to think we're ahead of these trends, but I have to say that every person that I meet at one of these events, I learn from each and every day. And I walk away from every conference that I attend with at least one good idea. And so the last thing I want to leave you with, and some of you know this, is that when I launched the Better Homes and Gardens real estate brand 9 years ago, right in the heat of the downturn, in a very, very tumultuous time, we decided to launch as a values-driven brand. And our core values back then were passion, authenticity, innovation, growth, and excellence. It made sense at the time. And those core values have helped guide us as a brand and our brokers and agents and team members throughout the past 9 years. Last year, and it had been bothering me for a while, I kept thinking, how do we, innovation doesn't seem relevant anymore because we're all innovative. I mean, we use technology each and every day. It's not what it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And so we made a bold and courageous change and took the I and made it inclusion. And so for us as a country and as an industry, including everyone and recognizing the value of each and every one of us as human beings and working towards common goals where we can do the right thing in each transaction and each interaction with every one of us and beyond. Inclusion is a culture that will make us very, very powerful in the years to come. And so I want to thank all of you for being inclusive, for being here, and it's such an honor to be able to share this with you today. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. To you, to all of you. Thank you. Hello.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm going to hug you. Thank you, Sherry.
We
Give her
don't want
another
her...
huge round of applause. I want everything she's wearing. Everything. I would rock that. If you're ready for a coffee and to network, you are lucky.